Some deaths are caused by illness, accidents, or crime, but others happen because of decisions that were careless, risky, or simply hard to understand. In this video, we'll look at 5 more real stories of people who lost their lives in ways that could have easily been avoided. Tragic deaths that happened because of a single foolish mistake. These stories are strange, shocking, and very real. It was October 20th, 2018 in Westwold, British Columbia. John James McMurray, a 34-year-old rapper from Calgary, Alberta, had spent months preparing for a risky music video. Known for combining extreme sports with his music, John planned to walk along the wing of a small airplane mid-flight while performing one of his songs. He wasn't new to danger. Before music, John was a professional freestyle skier, but after a serious accident where he shattered his heel and broke his back, he had to stop skiing. He then turned to music and brought that same drive and love for adrenaline into his new career. His stunts often helped him stand out in the crowded music scene. By 2018, John had already posted stunts online, like skydiving while rapping. In one recent video, he smiled at the camera mid-air wearing a parachute. Fans loved it, but some close to him were starting to worry. They felt he was taking things too far. The plan for this stunt seemed simple. Walk onto the wing of a small Cessna while it flies, rap a verse, then release himself and parachute to the ground. Everything was practiced, and John believed he had every part covered. That day, conditions were good. John put on his parachute, climbed into the plane, and waited as it took off. Once they reached the right altitude, John moved out onto the wing. But as he walked farther out, the added weight made the plane unstable. It began to spiral. The pilot tried to recover but couldn't. John held on. Experts believe he may have hoped the pilot could steady the plane so he could still complete the stunt, but he waited too long. When he finally let go, the plane was already flying too low. There wasn't enough time for the parachute to open. John hit the ground and passed away instantly. The pilot regained control and landed safely. No one else was hurt. John's body was found by a local farmer named Sidney Fox, who heard the low-flying plane shortly before discovering him in a hayfield. Authorities were called, and an investigation was launched by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the BC Coroner Service, and the Transportation Safety Board. At first, it was reported as a parachute accident, but soon, John's team explained what had really happened. They confirmed he had trained for months and planned to rap while walking on the plane's wing. The plane's spiral was caused by John moving too far out, and when he finally jumped, it was too late. John's close friend, skier Rory Wayne Bushfield, was part of the filming. He shared a tribute online, calling John his dearest friend and saying he had passed while living his dream. In an interview, Bushfield spoke about John's past injuries and how they pushed him to take on even greater challenges. A GoFundMe was set up after John's passing. The goal was to raise $10 million to help release his music and support his legacy. John was more than a rapper. His journey began in Calgary, where he took up skiing early and quickly turned professional. But years of injuries, including surgeries for a fractured neck and broken back, forced him to stop. He then focused on music. His 2016 album, Rex Leo, included visuals with dangerous sports like base jumping and skydiving. His final project, the video for The Man, was meant to go even further. Authorities confirmed that 2 planes were used during the shoot, one for filming, one for the stunt. Neither had mechanical issues. The problem was with the weight balance. The Cessna couldn't handle John's position on the wing. John wore a parachute and had a clear plan to land safely, but he didn't get the chance. His family later released a statement saying John poured his energy into both music and performance. He had big dreams and worked hard to bring them to life. John is survived by his wife Kaylee, his father Doug, his mother Jen, and his brother Jared. He was 34 years old. It was January 7th, 2015, in Stretford, Greater Manchester. 16-year-old Joshua Harrison Jones had just spent the day shopping with his grandmother. He came home happy and was looking forward to visiting universities that summer. Joshua was in his first year studying sports psychology at Salford City College. He was focused, hardworking, and aiming for top marks. He also had a strong interest in fitness and spent a lot of time training at home. That night seemed normal. Joshua planned to do a workout in his bedroom using the exercise equipment he had set up. It wasn't a full gym, but it allowed him to lift weights and do resistance-based exercises. He had developed a habit of using a soft one-piece nightwear, a onesie, as a homemade resistance band. He tied it to the machine to create tension during his workouts. It was something his family and friends said he had done often. Around 9:30 p.m., his grandmother called to let him know she was leaving to pick up his mother, Stephanie, from work. Joshua had been worried about his mom walking home alone in the dark. During the call, he laughed and joked. Everything seemed fine. That would be the last time anyone spoke to him. Sometime after 10 p.m., Joshua was alone in his room starting another workout. He tied the onesie to his weight bench and began lifting. But during the routine, the fabric ended up around his neck and got stuck between his body and the equipment. The tension tightened, trapping him. He struggled to free himself, but he couldn't. He eventually lost consciousness. At 10:30 p.m., Joshua's sister walked in and found him unresponsive. She quickly used her iPad to call family members for help. His mother, who had just finished her shift, noticed several missed calls. When she returned one of them, she couldn't get through. Then her brother called and told her something had happened. Joshua had been in a serious accident. Stephanie ran home, but the police picked her up on the way there. When they arrived, paramedics were already working on Joshua. The family tried to help until emergency services took over, but by the time he got to the hospital, it was too late. Joshua was pronounced dead shortly after. Greater Manchester Police started an investigation. Detective Inspector Cheryl Hughes said Joshua's room looked like any teenager's, untidy but normal. There were no signs of forced entry, no notes, and nothing suspicious on his social media. The onesie was still tied to the equipment. Investigators learned that Joshua had used it before in his workouts. His friends confirmed it too. It wasn't a random idea. The coroner, John Pollard, reviewed the case and confirmed the death was an accident. There was no sign Joshua meant to harm himself. He had likely passed out quickly from the pressure on his neck. The cause of death was restricted breathing. Joshua's family was heartbroken. They described him as a driven and kind young man who always aimed for success, whether in school or fitness. His mother said he wanted to be the best at everything. Teachers at Salford City College remembered him as a top student, someone who stayed after class to help others, and was deeply interested in the psychology of sports. His grandmother recalled how cheerful he had been that day, talking about his future and upcoming college visits. There were no signs that anything was wrong. That call at 10:30 p.m. changed everything. Detective Hughes said their research showed that using soft clothing like a onesie as resistance equipment wasn't unusual in some home workouts, but it was never meant for that kind of pressure. It wasn't safe. Joshua's death wasn't because of carelessness or poor choices. It was a simple, well-meaning attempt at creativity that ended in tragedy. He was 16, full of promise, and had a clear path ahead. No one could have seen this coming. It was February 5, 2017, in Natalie, Pennsylvania. Judith Permar, a 56-year-old mother and grandmother from Mount Carmel, left her home early that morning. Natalie is a small village located about 60 miles northeast of Harrisburg. Around that time, the roads were quiet. Judith drove her black Hummer along Route 54 and pulled over beside a large metal clothing donation bin. The weather was freezing. She left her vehicle running, stepped out, and brought a small step stool with her. Judith was short, so she needed the stool to reach the top of the bin, but she wasn't there to donate anything. She was trying to take items out. Back in November, police had received a tip about someone in a black Hummer seen removing bags from that same bin. At the time, they hadn't confirmed who it was. Now it was clear that the person had been Judith. That morning, she was doing it again. She climbed the stool and reached into the bin's chute. The chute had a swinging metal panel designed to prevent people from reaching too far inside, but the stool collapsed under her. She fell, and her left arm got stuck in the metal mechanism. She was now hanging, suspended in the air and unable to move. It was around 2 a.m. There was no one around. The temperature was below freezing. Judith stayed stuck like that for hours. Her arm had been badly injured from the fall in the metal. Her car was still on, with its headlights facing the road. At 8:30 a.m., more than 6 hours later, someone finally saw her. Judith had already passed away. The scene was painful to look at. Her body was hanging from the chute. The broken stool lay nearby. Bags of clothes and shoes were scattered on the ground. Her arm was still caught in the bin. According to Northumberland County Coroner James Kelly, Judith died from her injuries and from being exposed to the cold for too long. It was ruled an accident. Her arm and wrist had been fractured, and she was unable to free herself. Mount Carmel Police Chief Brian Hollenbush responded to the call. He said it was clear she hadn't come to donate anything. The bags on the ground had come from inside the bin. He confirmed that Judith had been trying to take the items when the stool gave out and she became trapped. Her black Hummer was still parked just a few feet away. This wasn't the first time police were alerted. That tip from November about a woman in a black Hummer hadn't led to anything. But now someone had lost their life. Judith was known in her community. She enjoyed gardening, cooking, baking, and caring for her cats. She had a husband, 3 sons, 1 daughter, and 4 grandchildren. Her daughter, Angela Minig, shared on social media that the loss was sudden and painful. She described Judith as fun and deeply loved. Still, there are questions. Why was Judith alone in the cold that early in the morning? Why take such a risk for donated clothes? Police believe this wasn't her first time, based on the earlier tip. The items scattered around the scene showed she had already started pulling them out when the accident happened. There was no evidence of anyone else being involved. No signs of harm from others. Police and the coroner agreed. What happened was a tragic accident made worse by the cold and a risky decision. Donation bins like the one Judith tried to reach into are often built with heavy steel and tight mechanisms to stop people from taking items. For someone of Judith's height, using a stool was likely the only way to reach, but that also made it more dangerous. When the stool broke, there was nothing she could do. By the time help arrived, Judith had been out there for hours, alone in the freezing cold. No memorial was set up at the site. No flowers, no markers. Just the same metal donation bin, still standing on Route 54, still collecting clothes. But for Judith, it became the place where everything ended. It was May 1st, 2013, in Seattle, Washington. Richard Swanson, a 42-year-old soccer fan, was standing near the Space Needle ready to begin a journey many thought was impossible. He planned to walk nearly 10,000 miles from Seattle to Sao Paulo, Brazil, dribbling a soccer ball the entire way. His goal was to arrive in time for the 2014 World Cup. He called the trip Breakaway Brazil. It wasn't a publicity stunt. He wanted to support a group called One World Football, which donates durable soccer balls to kids in less developed areas. He even used one of their balls, built to handle rough terrain. Swanson expected the walk to take more than a year and would pass through 11 countries. Recently laid off, divorced, and with his kids out of high school, Swanson had no job or mortgage. He said he felt free. He trained for months, sold his condo to pay for the trip, and bought hiking gear, a tent, and a GoPro camera. That money would support him on the road. Swanson started a website, breakawaybrazil.com, and posted updates, GPS locations, and photos. He also used Facebook and Flickr to build a following. Supporters cheered him on, offered meals and places to sleep, and even handed him water while he walked. But the risks were real. His route included deserts, jungles, and regions with high crime. He didn't speak many of the local languages. A writer later said his chances of finishing the trip were slim and that he needed more luck than anyone could expect. 2 days after leaving Seattle, he stayed with someone in Steilacoom who let him crash for the night. He realized his backpack was too heavy and left some gear behind, including his laptop. From then on, he used his phone to post updates. On day 3, a state trooper stopped him for walking along Interstate 5, which is illegal and dangerous. Still, he kept going. He spent 2 nights with his son, then crossed into Oregon on May 10th. He told reporters that he planned to stick mostly to smaller roads and trails, doing his best to avoid highways. He joked that there were a lot of cars and he would try not to get run over, a remark that would later seem haunting. By May 8th, a local paper in Longview, Washington, wrote about how he stayed on safe roads and only dribbled when it was safe. He walked about 24 to 26 miles a day, but was in pain, especially in his feet. He switched from shoes to sandals. On May 13th, the day before his death, a Lincoln City newspaper interviewed him. He was walking in the rain, guiding the ball carefully. He stayed the night, relaxed in a hot tub, had a big breakfast, and uploaded a final video on the beach. On the morning of May 14th, around 10 a.m., he left Lincoln City, heading south along Route 101. He hoped to reach Newport and then Bandon, where friends were planning a surprise birthday party. But he never arrived. Shortly after leaving town, he was hit from behind by a pickup truck while walking along the southbound shoulder, on the same side as traffic. He was taken to a hospital but didn't survive. Police later said he had been walking on the wrong side of the road for pedestrians. His soccer ball was found nearby, but they believed he wasn't dribbling at the time. The driver, a 52-year-old man, stayed at the scene. He had a record of traffic offenses, including speeding and giving false information to police. His license had even been suspended before. News of Swanson's death spread quickly, and his Facebook following grew from 400 to 8,000 in hours. Some people praised him. Others criticized his decision to make such a risky trip. Still, friends said he found something meaningful in those last 2 weeks. A woman recalled how he once walked miles to attend her son's soccer game just to show support. His son later wrote, "He died doing what he loved." On May 19th, the Seattle Sounders and One World Football honored him by giving his sons a ball and launching a donation campaign that sent thousands of soccer balls to Brazil for the World Cup. Though Swanson had only walked 270 miles, his short journey left a lasting impact on others and the cause he believed in. It was a Saturday night in October 2023 in the quiet village of Bedow, South Wales. Inside the local rugby club, Bedow RFC, families and children had gathered for what was meant to be a fun evening. The event was a fundraiser in support of the club's under-10s rugby team. One of the young players was the son of 37-year-old Natalie Buss, an accountant and mother of 2. Natalie lived in nearby Church Village. People who knew her said she was friendly, involved in her kids' lives, and active in the community. That night, she came to support the team and spend time with other families. The entertainment was led by 34-year-old Christopher Gibbons, a DJ with over 15 years of experience. He went by the name Roly Poly and was known for hosting family events. He planned games and music to keep the energy up. One of those games ended in tragedy. Earlier in the evening, Natalie had won a game of bingo. As a prize, she was invited to join a marshmallow eating contest. The goal was simple: see how many marshmallows could be eaten in 60 seconds while the crowd cheered and counted. Pink and white marshmallows were lined up on a table. Natalie laughed and smiled as she joined in. Friends and family watched, unaware that things were about to take a turn. Eyewitnesses said Natalie quickly began putting marshmallows into her mouth. One person remembered her laughing and possibly inhaling at the same time. That moment may have caused marshmallows to enter her airway. Moments after the game ended, Natalie walked off stage and collapsed in a hallway. At first, people thought she had fainted or tripped, but it became clear something more serious had happened. An off-duty nurse ran to help, along with others nearby. Someone rushed across the street to a school to get a defibrillator. Paramedics were called right away. People did everything they could, but Natalie's airway remained blocked. She could not be revived. She was pronounced dead at the scene. The event immediately changed. What had been filled with laughter and cheers quickly turned to silence and shock. People were seen crying. Everyone struggled to understand what had just happened. News spread fast. Bedow RFC shared a statement saying they were heartbroken. They called Natalie a loving wife, mother, and daughter and sent support to her family and friends. The incident raised serious concerns about safety at public events, especially those involving food-related games. DJ Christopher Gibbons was deeply affected and has since stopped including marshmallow games at his events, a tradition he had followed for years. He was interviewed by police and is expected to testify in a future full jury inquest, which will examine the cause of Natalie's death, how the game was handled, and whether safety risks were considered. Assistant Coroner Gavin Knox said the inquest would focus on risk assessment and safety planning, noting that the case may qualify as a serious public incident. The case was referred to the Health and Safety Executive, but a full inquest has been delayed due to the pandemic. Knox apologized to Natalie's family and said proceedings would resume as soon as possible. Expected witnesses include Natalie's husband Elliot, DJ Gibbons, 2 paramedics, and her doctor Kate Spencer. Local MP Alex Davies-Jones expressed sympathy, saying her thoughts were with the family and all those affected. A mother who attended the event said it was shocking to witness. One minute everyone was laughing, and the next, Natalie had collapsed. The number of marshmallows she consumed isn't confirmed, but witnesses said it was dozens. Though the full cause of death hasn't been released, it's believed she choked during the contest. As the inquest continues, Natalie is remembered for who she was: a caring mother, a trusted professional, and someone loved by many. What happened that night was supposed to be lighthearted, but it ended in the most heartbreaking way.